What's up, everybody? DJ the Sports Blur, and I'm back. Did y'all miss me? I missed you. Got a lot to talk about today. One of the things that I love doing and talking about is college football. So we're gonna do a week 2 wrap up kind of. We're gonna talk about a couple of things today. Obviously, I'm a Buckeye fan. You guys already know that. Cincinnati Bengal fan as well. We're not gonna talk about what happened with those stupid Steelers yesterday. We're gonna talk about the Buckeyes. We're gonna talk about USC. Texas versus Alabama. We're going to talk about Oklahoma if we have time. And then also we're going to talk about Scott Frost being fired and then what that means for the Big Ten going forward. Since you're here, if you do like college football, if you like college football analysis, please subscribe, man. I really consider subscribing. Please consider liking this video. Please tell everybody you know about the channel. Just grow with us. I say us, but just grow with me. I'm the one really doing this, but I really enjoy it. So let's get right into it. USC, are they really good yet? It's so early, I can't really call it, but I know they're trending in the right direction. I mean, last year, this was a team that went 4-8. Lincoln Riley gets in, and then immediately he has an impact, and for a couple of different reasons. I mean, one of the things that I saw, let me get into this really quickly. One of the things I saw when I was watching the USC versus Stanford game, Stanford has 1 transfer student. USC has 19. That's one of the reasons why it's hard to call if USC is a really good team or not. I mean, it's not even the same team from last year, head to toe. 3 of the 19 players that were transfers we're going to talk about today. The first was Caleb Williams. I mean, I've been talking about him for a long time. He was the missing piece for USC, and you really knew that when Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma, when he left Norman, Oklahoma, he was going to come to the bright lights of USC. And he had to have a strong quarterback. That strong quarterback is Caleb Williams. I mean, I read a stat the other day. He is leading college football, at least among all active quarterbacks, in yards per play. He averages 10.3 yards every time he touches a ball. So essentially, every time he touches a ball, it's going for a first down. And that's considered, when you combine his runs and also his throws. But tell you a couple stats. He went 20-27. 341 yards, 4 touchdowns. He did most of his work in the first half, to be honest with you. I mean, he was just lighting up the Stanford Cardinal. I mean, they had no answer for him in that first half. And this is why, again, it was so important for Lincoln Riley to get his guys in there. Speaking of another guy he brought in Travis Day. Don't forget, Travis Day last year was Oregon's leading rusher. I mean, he had almost 1,600 yards. He almost had 1,300 yards and 16 touchdowns for the Ducks last year. I mean, he also had 400 yards catching and a couple of touchdowns as well. And the last but not least, in terms of just some of the transfer guys, I mean, you had Jordan Addison. So last year he was playing for Pitt, right? Let me tell you some of his stats. Last year at Pitt, 100 catches, 1,600 yards receiving, 17 touchdowns. He is an absolute monster. He had 7 catches for 172 yards and 2 touchdowns versus Stanford. I mean, they had no answer for him. And then Mario Williams. Last year, he was a freshman at Oklahoma. 35 catches, 380 yards. He had flashes that when you knew when he was going to be a sophomore and junior, he was going to be an absolute stud. He had an also solid game versus Stanford. 4 catches, 74 yards, and a touchdown. Again, the 4 of those guys, including Caleb Williams, they did most of their work in the first half. But this is something. It kind of led me to see something with USC. They can be had. I mean, I think they're a solid team. I think they're trending upwards. But that second half, I mean, they came out and really didn't do much. They only had 131 total yards in the second half. They kicked 2 field goals. And Stanford even had an opportunity to make it a game. E.J. Smith, who was Emmitt Smith's son, who was the lead rushing back for Stanford, he had a heck of a game. 19 carries, 88 yards, a touchdown. He also had a receiving touchdown. But he fumbled the ball on the 2nd or 3rd yard line going into the end zone. USC's defense is better. They still kind of look like Oklahoma's defense when they were in the Big 12. I mean, they're maybe a little bit better, but they can be had. Stanford was really moving the ball. They didn't have a hard time moving the ball Against a better team, USC is definitely going to lose that game. So I'm not really sure yet if the Trojans are for real, but I know they're a heck of a lot better than they were last year. So let's speak of something that was a heck of a lot better last year. Ohio State's defense, way better. Through 2 games, they've only allowed 2 touchdowns. Through 2 games last year, they allowed 6 touchdowns. Now, the competition that the Buckeyes have played this year, not that great. We all have seen that Notre Dame wasn't really a great team. I mean, they lost this weekend to Marshall. Then they played Arkansas State, not a world beater, but it's still impressive stat nonetheless. When you're a Buckeye fan, you want any type of improvement with that defense. I don't care who we're playing, Notre Dame especially. So we're going to do this very quickly with the Buckeyes. The one thing I'm kind of intrigued with the Buckeyes, I'm waiting on their offense. It's intriguing to watch them. I mean, you're missing Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and you're even missing Jackson Smith and Jigba kind of coming into the start of this year. But you still have CJ Stroud, you have Travion Henderson, you have Mayan Williams, and you have one of the best O-lines in the country. And they're not doing something that I thought they would. Even without Jackson Smith and Jigba, they're not dominating. I assumed when Ohio State came into this season, they would be dominant on that offensive unit. And so far, I have not actually seen it. Now, versus Arkansas State, they played very well, but it's just Arkansas State. They beat them 45-12. CJ Stroud had a hell of a game. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a hell of a game, but they're not dominating the way I figured. I know what some of you guys are thinking, especially if you're Buckeye fans watching this. Why so negative? And the reason is because to win a national championship, and if you're a Buckeye fan, the expectation every year is to compete for a national championship. We're not happy with the, hey, I win the Big Ten, I got to playoffs. No, we don't pay Ryan Day as much as we pay him. Well, they don't pay Ryan Day as much as they pay him. They don't go out and get these 5-star recruits from across the country. They don't go ahead and get the best coaching staff in the country, to just compete for a Big Ten championship. The expectation every year, just like it is with Bama, just like it is with Georgia, Ohio State is the same exact. We want to compete for a national championship. And when you're an elite program, I don't think that's too much to ask as to dominate lesser and inferior competition. So CJ Stroud, he played very well. He was 16-24, 351 yards, 4 touchdowns. Travion Henderson, 10 carries, 87 yards, 2 touchdowns. Marvin Harrison Jr., he was this week's Big Ten co-offensive player of the week. He had 7 catches, 184 yards, 3 touchdowns, had a hell of an outing. And then Emeka Egbuka, I know every time I say his name, I know what you guys are thinking, especially if you're Buckeye fans. You're not a real Buckeye fan. You can't say everybody's name. I'm sorry to Emeka. Emeka Egbuka, whatever. I'm sorry to you if you're watching this. I doubt you are, but if you are, I apologize. He had 4 catches for 118 yards and a touchdown. The Buckeyes are very solid. As you kind of look around the Big Ten, you see a couple of really decent teams out there. Penn State's always going to play you well. Michigan, they look okay, I guess. Here's the thing about Michigan. They haven't played anybody. So it's hard to judge them. I mean, they just come off of a win versus Hawaii, the Rainbow Warriors or whatever they are. They're not a good team. It's hard to gauge if you're a good team when you just play inferior competition. However, they beat up on the cupcakes. So you look around the Big Ten, you have the Michigan, you have the Michigan States, you have Wisconsin. It's always going to be tough. But I think Ohio State, rightfully so, is a little head and shoulders above everybody, including Michigan. But it's going to be interesting to see, as the Big Ten plays, what's going to happen, what's going to unravel. Speaking of Big Ten, Scott Frost, he's gone. And unfortunately for him, they thought that if they brought him back to Nebraska, he was going to right all the wrongs that Nebraska has been facing, for the past 15, 20 years. He was a terrible coach, at Nebraska at least. I mean, at UCF, he did very well. He had a lot of success down there, but for whatever reason, he couldn't catch on in the Big Ten. As a matter of fact, I'm not even sure where he goes from here. I know he's going to get picked up because he has had success before, and there's going to be some school out there that picks him up. But Nebraska pretty much paid him $15 million. I repeat, $15 million to walk away. So, it's kind of, Nebraska should be better than what they've been. I mean, they have name recognition, they have a great facility, they have a lot of things that, lesser schools don't have. But then when you have Georgia Southern coming up and beating you, you get smacked by Northwestern in Ireland at the beginning of the season. I mean, you look at the schedule and you're like, okay, well, where are the wins if they're not going to beat the easy teams? Nebraska, in my opinion, did what they had to do by letting him go. Another team that just, smacked a team was Georgia. They beat Samford 33-0. There was no issue there. Georgia, in my opinion, is the best team in the nation. I think they're the most complete team. So nothing to see there. Appalachian State, let's talk about them. They took down another giant. If you're an Ohio State fan, you absolutely know who Appalachian State is because they took down Michigan back in 2007 in what would be an epic underdog beating, a giant at their home stadium. So Appalachian State took down Texas A&M 17-14. So this was interesting because Appalachian State played UNC last week. UNC actually dropped significantly in the rankings. They were ranked number 7. And after they allowed 40 points in the fourth quarter at home to Appalachian State, the voters just went ahead and said, you know what, you guys suck. So I'm kind of interested to see what they're going to do with Texas A&M. In my opinion, I believe that the SEC has an inherent bias. They've done very well. They're great when it comes to national championships, but I don't believe the SEC is as great as a lot of people think. So when you see teams like Texas A&M losing, I don't think Kentucky's a great team. I don't think Florida's a great team. I believe the SEC has a couple of great teams, and it is just Georgia and Alabama. But I digress a little bit. Just going back to, I'm just wondering what the voters are going to do when they rank A&M. Obviously, they'll be at the top 10. I mean, you can't lose to an unranked team like Appalachian State, who's not an FBS school, by the way. You can't lose to them at home. Actually, they might be an FBS team. I know at one point they were Division I AA. If I'm wrong, just let me know in the comments. I'll promise I'll get it right. I still don't know everything about college. I just like talking crap about college football. But, I still think they're probably going to have them in the top 15, again, because of the SEC bias. And if they go ahead and rebound throughout the season, I mean, they play close games with Bama. They play close games the rest of the schedule. I can see them again back in the top 10, maybe even the top 5. But they were exposed. And I believe that the SEC in general will be exposed this year. Let's keep going. Speaking of being exposed, I made another video about Alabama a couple of days ago. Please check it out. So Alabama went to Texas. They went to Austin, Texas to play the unranked Texas Longhorns. Quinn Ewers was dishing, man. He came out, he started very well. He was everything I thought he was going to be at Ohio State had CJ Stroud not been there. But he came out on fire. I mean, he had complete control of the game. And it looks like Alabama's MO is when you have a quarterback dishing on you, Texas quarterback dishing on you, get him out the game. Back in 2009, they injured Colt McCoy in the national championship game. They got him out of the game, and they did the same exact thing to Quinn Ewers. Their backup came in. He played very well. They also injured him. He was hobbled. He was on one leg. And it took Bryce Young and his heroics at the end of the game to escape Texas with a win. So, the voters love Alabama, and for a good reason. I mean, they've proven themselves. I don't think Alabama's the number 1 team in the nation. I personally have them number 4 in my top 5 rankings. I'll get to that here in a little bit. But I think that's a game that Alabama has to dominate. Now, Texas has some studs all around the ball. I mean, they recruit very well. Texas is one of the most richest states in terms of just talent for college football. So I get that they have athletes, like they have guys, but when you're the number one team in the nation, right, and you knock the starting quarterback from the opposing team out, you have to dominate them. If you watch that game for 55 of the 60 minutes, Alabama didn't even look like the best team on the field, let alone the best team in the country. Texas thoroughly outplayed them. They out-physicaled them, if that's a word. They are out-coached. Texas really had that game. And when they look at the game film, they're going to see so many different opportunities that they had to put that game away. So I don't really believe Alabama is going to win a national championship this year. I said it even last year. I thought their run at the SEC, as SEC Kings was coming to an end. I think Georgia's the best team in the SEC. And I think there's going to be some other teams that are going to be able to handle Alabama, in the coming weeks and even in the coming years. So I think that dynasty is going to come to an end. Let's move on to another game. Michigan beats Hawaii. I don't really want to talk about that game, so I'm probably not. I'm sorry. I just don't like the team up north. And until they do something that makes me want to talk about them, unfortunately, I'm just probably not going to talk about them. But before we get out of here, I want to say one more thing. Every week, I'm going to try and give you guys, as long as I do these weekly recaps, I'm going to give you a top 5. So my top 5 before I get out of here, I have number 1 team in the nation. Actually, let's start from 5. Number 5, we're going to have the team up north. We're going to have the Michigan Fighting Wolverines. I think they have a pretty complete team, offensively and defensively. I mean, they've been beating up on scrubs, but they did beat us, Ohio State, in the Big House last year. Even though they were exposed by Georgia in the playoffs, I do think they're a very solid football team, and I think they're coached well enough to, at least make it through the season unscathed until they have to come back to Columbus and we return that favor. At number 4, I have the Ohio State Buckeyes. Excuse me. Oh my gosh, I'm messing up. At number 4, I have Alabama. I can't even read my own writing. I'm sorry. Michigan 5, Alabama 4. Super overrated in my opinion. Without Bryce Young, they'd probably be, a 6th ranked or maybe 7th ranked team. At 3, I had the Ohio State Buckeyes. I apologize. The defense is looking like it's being shored up. Offense is always there. And they're not even clicking on all cylinders right now. So when they actually start doing that, they'll be even more potent. Number 2, I have USC. I have the USC Trojans. And then number 1, I have Georgia. I have the Georgia Bulldogs. I know putting the USC Trojans at number 2 seems a little bit flawed, especially since, I had them over the likes of Michigan, Bama, and, Ohio State. But right now, I'm basing everything off of their potential. I think they have something really, really solid out there. I mean, they're going to go to the Pac-12 untested. No one's really going to step up. They had to play Utah. Utah's going to be their best test, kind of to get to see where they're at. Maybe Oregon can step up, maybe UCLA. But right now, I know that they have such a weak schedule. I'm going to put them as number 2 because I think they're going to continue to get better and better and better. When they played Stanford, I didn't necessarily love what I saw, but when they were striking well. They were really good. I haven't seen an offense like that this year so far when they were on. Not even Georgia versus Oregon looked that clean. So Caleb Williams has a total command of the offense. Georgia, again, number 1, the most complete team in the nation. If I'm wrong, let me know. Tell me in the comments what you guys think. So this video is up. If you're still here and you haven't, please subscribe. I don't know what you're doing yet. Please do your boy a favor, right? Subscribe, like, comment, share, all that. Please do that. And I'll see you guys in the next video.